All right, I'm going to teach you how to set your thread break sensor. The thread break sensor is something that I consider invaluable when I have a computerized machine, especially. When I'm quilting by hand from the front, when the thread breaks, I see it, so I stop. But this can be very useful if you use pantographs a lot. When you're quilting from the back side, your thread breaks, and sometimes you just keep going and you don't know that it broke. So you might like the thread break sensor if you do a lot of pantographs, and you might want a thread break sensor if you do computerized quilting. Now, the first thing is the thread break sensor, it has to have the lightning stitch to go with it because we set the setting on the lightning stitch control. So we'll talk about that in a minute, but right now I'm going to talk about the way this is set up. So this is wired in and it will sound an alarm when the thread breaks. And if you're computerized, it will stop the machine as well, which is really nice. But it needs to be positioned just right. So when my check spring bounces like this, and there's movement underneath this, the tip of this yellow cylinder, I need to be able to see a light right in here. I'll see a light, and that's not happening. And the reason that's not happening is because right now that is positioned too far away from the check spring. So I've got a nut on each side, and right now they're just, pretty loose, and I can twist them with my hand. When I get this just right, I'll tighten them up a little bit more. But I'm going to keep moving that a little bit closer to the check spring by loosening this top one. Did you see this light went on? Oh, there we go. So this light here is on, and each time the check spring moves underneath the yellow tip, it will flash. So I know I've got that in the best position now. I'm going to tighten up the bottom one. And I'm just going to do this by hand at first and get them just a little bit snug. You've got lock collars on each side so that it won't come undone. Now, with a wrench, this is not a man-tight kind of thing. I'm going to tighten it just a little bit so that it won't slip around on me. This is in a position where, you're threading and your hands are there. It's easy to bump this. So you just want it tight enough that it's not wiggling around in there. And when you pull on your thread and your check spring bounces, that the light will bounce on and off. Now it's in the correct position, and we need to set our settings correct on the lightning stitch. So come around to this side, and I'll show you how you set that. Here on this screen, on the lightning screen, we're going to touch Setup. It will take us to the next screen. One of the places here is where it says Thread Break Sensitivity. Right now, it's on 0. 0 means off. The thread break sensitivity alarm is off. So I'm going to change that to whatever number I want. But I want you to understand the numbers and how they work. 0's off. 1 is the most sensitive it can be. And what you're saying is if it skips 1 stitch, that means 1 bounce of the check spring, it will sound the alarm and tell you you have a broken thread. Well, that's not very many stitches to skip, and you're going to get some false alarms if you have it set that low. I've found that I'm happier with it set at about 4 or 5. So I'm going to set it at 4. You can see it's 4, and then I say enter. And now if it misses 4 stitches, it will sound the alarm and stop the machine when it's in the computerized mode. And this works really well for us in our shop, and we really consider this an invaluable tool. It's a great add-on, especially if you're computerized or using pantographs.